Welcome back to Sportsbook Review Videos. It is week number 16 of the NFL season, which means it is once again time for me to release my prop betting picks from Bet365. I have a couple of player props and one team prop for you. We'll start off with the Pittsburgh Steelers' DeAngelo Williams, who has an over-under for rushing yards this week at 80.5, going up on the road against the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, this is a big divisional game, a rivalry in the past. However, the Ravens are boasting backups at basically every position with a 10-point spread in favor of the Steelers. You have to think they're going to be in charge of this one basically from the beginning. And, of course, that could mean more DeAngelo Williams. So on the surface of things, it looks like the over's the play. But I think the under actually is a better value this week at minus 120 because Williams has faced a couple of tough matchups over his last few weeks. Hasn't run well at all. And last week against the Denver, really one of the toughest run defenses in the NFL, only 14 carries for 26 yards, and before that, only 3.3 yards per carry against the Bengals on 23 carries. So I think this week the Ravens run defense doesn't get as much credit as they should. And obviously, if the Steelers get out ahead of things, I know that they're going to want to put up some points on their divisional rivals and show them up a little bit. However, they also will want to protect a 30-plus-year-old DeAngelo Williams, who does have an injury history in the past, and they will need desperately for the playoff push here. So I think that under 80.5 could be a pretty good speculative play on DeAngelo Williams this week. Next up is Ginn Jr., who has an over-under of 54.5 receiving yards this week. And if you've noticed over the last 3 weeks, Ginn Jr. has been pretty good at football. He's scored 6 touchdowns in his last 3 games and 7 in his last 4 games. And going up this week against an Atlanta Falcons team who only had 2 receptions against 2 weeks ago. However, both were for touchdowns for a total of 120 yards. I think Ginn could easily get a couple of long balls for the over to cash once again in this one. Why not ride the hot hand here? Because even if he doesn't get a couple of long balls and the Falcons wise up to that this week after getting burned twice just 2 weeks ago, he's still been getting a ton of volume. In fact, he got 15 targets last week. If he's going to receive that much volume from Cam Newton, easily, I think over 54.5 receiving yards is a pretty good play here for Ginn Jr. at minus 120. Now, finally, the Pittsburgh Steelers come in as another prop betting pick for me this week, but for a team prop value of over under 3.5 touchdowns, and I think the over could be a very good play in this one because even though they won't want to get some of their star players injured, they could still score touchdowns on this Baltimore Ravens defense, and averaging about 27 points per game this season, going up against a pass defense that is very, very beatable with the best receiver in the NFL in Antonio Brown. At all of that combined, if you go over 3.5 touchdowns, you can get even money value at plus 100 from Bet365. I think it's enough value for me to say over 3.5 touchdowns at even money for the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. That'll do it for your prop betting picks. Make sure you check out some of my other NFL last second plays here as we head into the Week 16 slate. But until then, for Sportsbook Review, I'm Jordan Sharp.